It's hard. It's really hard to talk about a match like that, but we have to do it. This is Lazio Lounge. I'm Vittorio Campanile. With me, there is Alasdair Mackenzie. Hello, Alasdair. How are you? Tough night, I would say.
Yeah, very tough night. For a number of reasons, obviously the referee and the VAR issue has reared its ugly head again. We'll get to that. But also the fact that everybody else above us dropped points this weekend, and somehow we've ended up further behind them than we were at the start of the weekend.
It's not a surprise. It's not a surprise. We've been talking before the beginning of the match, and my biggest concern was that the team could feel the pressure, knowing all the results of the other match. Let's not forget that winning today, you could reach Roma and had a match less. You could beat Udinese at home. You could even have the same points of Juventus. So that was a massive change in the table. But this didn't happen. Lazio didn't play great, but I still believe that the referee changed the game completely. Let's talk immediately. As I tweeted, I thought Immobile made a terrible mistake. It could be a red card. Yeah, probably. I wouldn't be shocked by that, but it was penalty all the way, no doubt. For the first time ever, the Sky commentator both said immediately, it's penalty, no doubt, and the referee didn't give it. Now, this is simply embarrassing. And unfortunately, it's not the first time that happened against Lazio. The Roma derby, the penalty gave at the last second against Fiorentina. Too many bad mistakes against Lazio. This is terrible.
Yeah, I think it's even worse when you consider that they've all come in such quick succession. Sorry. I think VAR was something I didn't really have an opinion on for quite a while into this season because it was something that hadn't really affected Lazio for the start of the campaign. And obviously what makes it so hard to get to grips with this time round is that we've happened against Fiorentina, and now this is happening. And you're right, Immobile shouldn't have reacted the way he did. I'm not convinced it's a red card because I think it's Belotti who leads with his head and is the one who's making the headbutt motion, and Immobile pushes him away with his shoulder or his chest. I think it's a yellow card to both of them. I don't think it's a dangerous thing. I think Burdisso has just made the most of the situation, really. I see what you mean. It could be a red card, but the issue is also that, for me, the inconsistency of having two VAR claims right beside each other, and they've only looked at one or acted on one. How can you not even look at the penalty? It's incredible. It really is.
Do you think they didn't see it, or because?
Well, if they didn't see it, that's what the VAR is there for. I mean, if you have the entire Lazio team claiming a penalty to you, then it should be up to you, your linesman. Look, between the referee, the linesman, the fourth official, somebody must have seen that there was a handball claim in there. And if the Lazio players are protesting this much, I mean, it comes back to the last conversation we had about VAR when we were talking about how it needs to be an appeal system with putting the clubs in charge of it, because I think that teams have to be in charge of their own appeals. It's the only way that this is going to work and actually satisfy people. If it's down to the referees to decide what they're looking at and what they aren't, they're going to be under a lot more pressure than they already are. And trust me, Italian refs don't get it easy as it is. So this has to be changed in order to actually give the appeal process over to the clubs.
But unfortunately, after a match like this, there's going to be more and more discussion. And to be honest, it's obvious. You said you could give a yellow card to Burdisso and Immobile. I agree. It could even finish that way. But I want to punish Immobile for his behavior, and I would say, okay, you could give a red card to Immobile, but that was penalty all the way. No excuse. You cannot miss it. It's simply unbelievable. The hands are high, high. They are not even near to the body, and he's moving the hands to go against the ball. That's obvious. And then Burdisso provoke Immobile was easy to see, you know. Really, I cannot believe Giacomelli didn't see it. I cannot believe it. I cannot believe it. There's something more, absolutely. I cannot understand it. I cannot, really, really. And it's funny because Inzaghi coming back in the second half went to Chiffi, that is the fourth referee, and said, "We saw everything. It's embarrassing." So they had the chance to see the replay at injury time and see that it was clearly a penalty. Clearly a penalty. This is simply unbelievable. And sorry, you know, Giacomelli will be fired. He will never referee again in Serie A. Who cares? You know, Lazio got penalized, and nothing's going to change it. So.
And again, you know, that's however many points is the difference between us and the top four in Champions League football. Ultimately,
absolutely.
But I mean, I don't like engaging in these conspiracy theories about the league or the system being against Lazio. But what is worrying is when you have players like Luis Alberto coming off at half time and going straight over to the media, the broadcasters, to say, "I don't think the powers that be want us in the top four." And obviously he's very angry because all this happened just before half time. But it's something a bit different when you actually have players expressing those kind of concerns publicly. I don't know what it is, but it's happening too much against us. Yeah. You know, I can't remember one of these going in our favour.
It never happened this season. That's the thing. You know, we are human, so we're gonna make mistakes, absolutely. But it's not possible that you make 3 bad mistakes all against one team. It's not possible. After the Fiorentina penalty, referee should have thought, no, can I whistle this against Lazio after what happened? Instead, no, they go easy. And there's a quote of Parolo just after the match, who is saying, we have to forget everything. Now we have to think that we're playing all the time 12 against 11 because the referee are against us. And this is a player who say that. You know, what worse can happen? And then people say, we don't know why Serie A rights abroad are not sell at the same price to Premier League. Leicester won the Premier League 2 years ago. It would never happen in Serie A. Never. I'm sorry to say this.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to take. I mean, I think opinions are still split on VAR. I think what I would like to point out at this stage as well is that we're complaining about game-changing decisions here. When it came to VAR decisions that have gone against Lazio that were fair, I think we treated them quite fairly. When it was the Lazio conceded a last-minute penalty to Juventus on VAR, and I don't think we had any complaints about that because it was a really stupid tackle by Patrick. Absolutely. So I'm absolutely willing to accept the use of VAR when it does work and it works efficiently and the right decision is made. But the point is that the wrong decisions are being made, and not just that, but they're being made at the same time that Lazio's claims are being ignored. And that inconsistency, I hate to repeat myself so often, but that's just really what gets me going with VAR. It really winds me up.
We have Patrick Bowman on Twitter. To me, there was no red card. Yellow to both players are fair. Red too hard. Penalty, so 50-60. VAR is a cancer for football. I said it from the beginning, and as a Laziale, it's proven to be cancer. Though Immobile should not have given the ref the chance to give him the red card. I think this is a valid point. Immobile should not have given the ref the chance to give him the red card.
And actually, you know what? I think that's one of the most concerning things about tonight was the way that Lazio players lost their heads. Yeah. Not just around the incident itself, but when the incident happened, I was thinking, I was obviously enraged about it at the time. But then once it got to half time, I thought, actually, you know what? If this is going to happen in a game, it's happened at the perfect time because Inzaghi's got them into the dressing room immediately after all of this has happened. So that's an opportunity to take them in for 15 minutes, sit them down, calm everybody down, say, look, this is the game plan. We can play with 10 men. We've done it before. And we go out there and we can still give them a game. But Lazio players came out for the second half, and Lulic is straight over to the referees complaining again. I mean, it's crazy how they still seemed so rattled by it after half time.
Well, you have to say that the referee didn't make only that mistake. I thought there was a yellow card on Iago Falque at like 10 minutes before. I think it was Luis Alberto going on a counter-attack and he fall him from the back. That was yellow card all the time, and again, nothing. And that happened again afterwards. So you could see that there was something wrong with the referee. And Iago Falque took the ball with the hand. It was a second yellow card because it was a yellow card for the handball. It was red card for Lazio and penalty. Instead, it was no penalty and red card for Lazio. So it was simply, there are two mistakes there in one. So it's terrible. And I don't know, talking about the match, I saw Immobile nervous from the beginning. He was run too much and was never in the box. Maybe he's feeling a little bit the moment that he's not performing that well.
Yeah, and I think that now is probably a good point to move away from the refereeing a bit and talk more about the actual performance, because I think a lot of the comments we've had from our followers on Twitter as well are also raising concerns about that, because Lazio really didn't play that well tonight, not just with 10 men, but actually before that point as well. And it's definitely still not the same team that we saw throughout October. And it's definitely still a team trying to regain its form. I believe that's one win in the last 6 now. Which is, sorry, in the last 5, is it? Which is really not good enough. Yes, we've had some good games in hard games in that time, and beating Sampdoria away was a brilliant result. But it's crazy for the team to have come from where it was to where it is now, just in the course of that international break.
Yeah, but in those 5 matches, there is the derby, the penalty. There's Fiorentina, another incredible penalty, and there's today.
Yeah, but despite that, I mean, we talked about the derby. We said that wasn't the same Lazio team. They weren't playing the same way. The Fiorentina game, exactly the same. Lazio were not playing with the same fluidity or confidence. So, yes, those games were also affected by penalty incidents, but at the same time, it was still a different Lazio performance from what we were seeing before the international break.
Yes, but as I wrote you before, you can see Napoli struggling. They're not at the same level of a couple of months ago. Inter is struggling. Without Andanovic, they would have lost against Juventus and probably against Napoli. Juventus is not performing that well because they beat Napoli, but just because Napoli was awful. I don't think Juventus played that well. Roma is struggling again. So I think it's the time of the year where all the top teams are a little bit without gas anymore. And Lazio is no exception. We said it from the start of August that the depth of this team is not big enough to compete on 3 competitions to fight for the Champions League. They have to make a miracle. And they were doing it, but you have to understand there can be some breaks. Now, forgetting about the referee, my biggest concern is Luis Alberto coming out of the pitch. Lazio finished the match in 9 men because Luis Alberto felt I don't remember if his left or right leg tight and couldn't finish the match. And even Radu in the last second felt a little bit his leg tired. So it's not only that. Let's not forget that Immobile will probably get 2 match ban. So it's going to be tough even for the next matches. So I'm really concerned about that.
Yeah, I think it was adding insult to injury the fact that not only did the decision go against us, but it's come at a time when we've already talked about the team looking tired, and you've given 45 minutes of some players who are already overworked having to put everything out there. And, Marco Parolo, Milinkovic-Savic, these guys, doing twice the running they normally have to, and you could see it. And yeah, Alberto coming off injured is probably as a result of that as well. I mean, the one positive is seeing Felipe Anderson come back off the bench, and I thought he actually made a quite a good impact tonight. Obviously, not great circumstances for him to come in, but it's going to be a very useful time for him to come back into the team, because something we've considered before while this dip of form has been happening is whether Inzaghi needs to shake things up, try a new formation or a new strategy, or just shuffle his team around instead of using the same 11. I think Felipe Anderson could be key to that, because he has a few options about what he can do with Felipe Anderson, but he's clearly a difference maker. He's a game changer, and he'll take that kind of pressure off Alberto to be the one who creates. And particularly in the first half, before any of this happened, with the referee, Alberto, I thought he looked sharper, as in he looked more involved in the game, but he kept trying to play the killer pass all the time when he was, he had options left and right quite often. He'd be trying to thread the ball through the middle, and it wasn't really happening for him. And I think it'll be good to have another option in terms of just looking to him alone as the creative outlet.
I like you said this, because I had the feeling that Luis Alberto was trying, like all the other players, to allow Immobile to score. I thought in a couple of chances in the first half, Maruzic was free on the right, but they all went to the center to try to put Immobile in front of the keeper, like they felt they needed to make him score to, give him confidence again. And that probably was the mistake why Lazio didn't score in the first half, because Maruzic was often open and free, but they selected to pick Immobile, who for me is not playing really well. As I said before, he looks nervous from the beginning and anxious to score. It's understandable, a striker needs to score. It's his duty, and when he doesn't, he feel the pressure. He feels he's not doing his job.
Well, you know what? I think in a way, this Coppa Italia game against Cittadella is coming at a really good time. We talked on last week on Thursday about what was the possibility, of seeing the likes of Micheli back in the team and perhaps some of the younger guys. Well, actually now I think Inzaghi's going to be quite tempted to play a very strong team for that game, to actually try and get their confidence back, because if you can have your strikers scoring goals and playing with that kind of swagger they were playing with before, then perhaps that'll give them more belief going into the game against Atalanta next weekend that they can repeat that kind of performance. Now, one thing I'm unsure about, I'm sure you'll be able to tell me though, is if Immobile's suspension will apply in the Coppa Italia, or if that's just going to be for Serie A.
Only Serie A.
Only in Serie A. Okay, so Immobile can therefore play on Thursday, and I think that would be a great opportunity for him to actually, score a goal again, because like you say, if it's beginning to affect the way the rest of the team's playing, and that might also be a subconscious thing, they might not realise they're doing that. Instead of it actually being something they've trained with, they might prefer to hand an opportunity to him than take it on themselves. But I think it's a good time for him to actually start that game and try and get on the score sheet, because Caicedo's game time is obviously limited, and he'd be looking to that game as an opportunity. But if Immobile can't play against Atalanta, presumably that means Caicedo will play. So I think that's a good time to put him into the team and try and get him scoring again.
Rami Algendi, who is finally back,
Oh,
tweets. I'm sorry, we can't blame the ref and VAR all we want, but we aren't playing well at all. Inzaghi is making too many mistakes, and now everybody knows how we play. Do you want to reply?
I think it's a bit harsh to blame Inzaghi, still, for the same reasons I talked about last week, because there isn't an awful lot he can necessarily change unless he changes the entire system. But I don't think we've been bad enough for it to be necessary to change to a 4-3-3 or a 3-4-3 or anything. I think what we can see from today and the Napoli game is that the back four is basically the system of last resort for Lazio now in terms of being what he goes to in terrible circumstances. But I don't think it's something that he's necessarily going to be looking to switch to from the start. Sorry, you're about to say something.
I would say just a name, Lukaku.
Well,
I mean,
how many times do we have to say it?
Yeah, I mean, even today, Lulic was terrible. He was terrible. He made so many mistakes.
Sorry to interrupt, but
no, go on.
Going on to Lulic, a favourite talking point, obviously, but he's been bad enough recently on the pitch. But today, the thing I was most disappointed by is something that I'm just going to go back to, which was his lack of leadership. I thought as a captain, he has to be the one there. The whole point of a captain in that situation is to be the one to calm everybody else down, remind them that they're still in the game, they can still get the points from the game. And actually, he was one of the ones remonstrating the most with the referee. There's a point that he just kicked the ball away, having won the free kick in the second half. I mean, one thing you need him in the team for, if he's going to be starting ahead of Lukaku, is for leadership. And he didn't supply that today, and that was really disappointing.
Yeah, he should be the leader of the team. Probably he was the first one to explode and lose concentration today, and that was pretty obvious in the second half. But, play Lukaku and give him a chance. Probably physically he can make the difference. Then we have Moses Ali Habib, I hope I said it right, on Spreaker, that say, and the next match with Atalanta in Bergamo, without Immobile and maybe also without Alberto, that's going to be really tough. Do you expect Caicedo and Felipe Anderson to start, or Milinkovic-Savic to play near Caicedo?
Yeah, I would expect to see Caicedo and Anderson, and I think Caicedo deserves the chance to actually step up and be given a go. There's no one else. Obviously, I mean, Palombi isn't ready for that, I don't think, and Caicedo hasn't had many opportunities, but he's still managed to score a few goals. And clearly, he's not as talented a player as Immobile, but I think he's the best option for a game like that. And actually, he could end up, that could be quite a good combination in a way. He could be quite a good foil for Anderson, as Anderson can kind of play off him, because Caicedo is clearly a more kind of physical player and capable of holding the ball up a bit better, and that could be something that Anderson could kind of combine with quite well. We've not had any opportunities to actually see if I'm right about that in any way, but we might as well be hopeful.
Yeah, sorry, I'm reading because Diagonale made a statement. Say this is the fourth episode against Lazio. We have to protest. We cannot allow this to happen again. If they don't want us to play, they just tell us and we play all in Europa League, because we cannot go on with this. We're going to talk about the draw of Europa League. Maybe it brings a little bit of good news in this podcast. And Vinovu say something really good on Twitter's, right, replying to Lazio_lounge. Composure is often the difference between good teams and great teams. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought we had time to recover the match. It was complicated because we were one man down, etc. But I thought Lazio could make it. Instead, they rushed too much. I thought after Luis Alberto goal, instead of relaxing a little bit and think, okay, we have 20 minutes, we can make it, we can push with order. They start making mistake. Radu gave up that ball and allowed Torino to score again, and that ended the match. I felt like Lazio felt too much pressure. It was now or never, and you have still 20 minutes to make it. So
I think it's also hard to keep your composure when you feel like you're the victim, and the players clearly did after that incident, when it takes away the actual reality of the situation, and it does for us as fans as well. So we can't really criticise them for that. But when you step back and try and look at it kind of objectively, what you've got at half time is a 0-0 scoreline at home in front of your own crowd. Yes, you've got 10 men, but you've actually got 10 men just for 45 minutes. Many teams have got results from those circumstances before. There's no reason why Lazio couldn't. Perhaps if we're talking about criticising Inzaghi, it might be that he went a bit too attacking a bit too soon.
Yes, but it wasn't only the red card. There was a double mistake. That was penalty all the way, all the time, no doubt about it. And if they whistle it against Lazio, we are both here saying, hey, it was penalty. Nothing to talk about. It's penalty. And it's not the first time. The players remember it happened against in the Derby. It happened against Fiorentina. And now it happens again after a week. Everybody start thinking, that there's something wrong there. I mean, it's human nature. You cannot believe that Giacomelli makes mistakes only for one team. I can understand that frustrated, because you think after the penalty gave to Fiorentina, well, next time it's going to come our way. It's statistical, right? Once it's for the other, the next time probably is going to be for us. No, it's always against us. So, again, I'm not saying Lazio played that well that should have won 4-0, but give me that penalty and then we talk.
Yeah, well, but I mean that's what I'm saying. That's the way we all feel as fans, and that's the way they'll be playing as feeling as players. But as professionals, that's the job of Inzaghi, of Lulic, of those guys around the team, to make them actually try and look at it objectively for that 45 minutes to try and get a result. And actually, they didn't seem capable of doing that. Like Vinovu said earlier about composure, that's something that was lacking from the team tonight. Leadership was lacking from the team. They were in a position to get themselves back into the game, even after going 2-0 down. And they did well to bring themselves back into the game, but it wasn't happening tonight. And it's as well as the way they were playing, the mentality is perhaps even more concerning, I'd say.
But to be honest, Torino made 3 incredible goals that I think if they try all night long, they will never score again. And Sirigu, that is a below average goalkeeper, made a couple of incredible saves tonight. So it was even luck that didn't show up for Lazio. Honestly, I didn't feel Lazio was playing that bad, worse than Torino, honestly. I thought this was a game that could be decided by an episode. Instead, it was a double episode that decided the match against Lazio. So, honestly, it's unexpected, and I didn't believe Lazio played that bad. Then there is something we have to talk. Torino was playing with 3 striker, and Lazio was playing with 3 central defender. That's a risk in my point of view, because it's very important how the 2 midfielder on the left and on the right play, because otherwise the 3 central defender has to mark one-on-one against the 3 strikers of Torino, and this happen often, and it happened a couple of times that they were able to dribble past the Lazio defender, and that's why I believe Lazio struggled so much in the first half, because Marusic from one side and Lulic in the other weren't able to cover the position and allow Torino often to be one-on-one with a central defender.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's a good point. I think as well it was quite telling perhaps that when he switched to a back four, he took off Marisic. I don't think he sees Marisic as being a natural defender in that role, and brought on Basta there. Um, Lulic again defensively is also someone I have concerns about. So, but a lot of teams in the league play with 4-3-3 systems, so it's not exactly anything new for them to
Yes,
accustom themselves to.
but probably should adapt better to defend against Torino, or it's an idea of Inzaghi and say, okay, we risk it there, but we're gonna have an advantage when we attack. Um, just fast to reply to Jan and Ramel Gendi, we quoted just the short sentence of Diaconale, who is the club spokesman, who said, as I said before, that there have been a terrible mistake. It's not the first one; it's the fourth in a short time. If they don't want Lazio to compete at a high level, they just can tell us, and we can play or in Europa League. I think we can cut it there from the referee point of view. Adi again on Spreaker. Inzaghi introduced a more attacking tactic the moment we conceded. I actually liked the attitude. Sirigu made some incredible save that would have made anyone feel hopeless. Do you
Well,
agree?
that's true. Yeah, that's true. Sirigu did make some great saves, and actually, having criticised Lulic earlier on, he pulled off one of the best shots I've seen him pull off all season, I think, earlier. And yeah, no, it did take a couple of really good saves from Sirigu as well. Lazio still created chances. The worrying thing in a way is that they probably created more chances when they were 10 men down, and they had that kind of fire in their belly.
Yep.
But obviously they were chasing a lead, so it's a bit different than actually having a structured game plan like they did in the first half. But you'd ideally want the combination of the two, where they've still got a settled mentality, but they're looking a bit more, a bit more fiery, a bit more up for it. Because that's something that seemed to be lacking, I'd say, since the international break. Is it's all been a bit lethargic, a bit slow, and if we're going to be the victims here, then I'd like to see us find a way to turn that into a positive thing. If it can be us against the world, then maybe that'll give the players some extra kind of motivation going into their league games. I'd like to think so. Desperately trying to find the positive.
Yeah. Tare spoke, and again he said this is unbelievable. This was an incredible mistake. But the most important part, said he doesn't understand why the penalty hasn't been seen again on the VAR, and said that Burdizo told Lazio player that he said to the referee that Immobile didn't touch him, but the referee said, no, I decided, and gave the red card to Immobile. This is even worse than I thought. So it's simply unbelievable.
Wait, Burdizo told the referee that he wasn't.
Yes. He told he hasn't been touched by Immobile, and the referee said, no, I decide, and gave a red card to Immobile. This is
That's actually scandalous, though. I mean, that changes everything, really.
I'm speechless. Walem Mohamed, Inzaghi took a really unnecessary gamble tonight. There was no need to go overboard so early in the match, play 4 in defense and taking Leiva out. Poor decision by Inzaghi, to be honest. He should have waited until 18th minute to put this stunt. I don't know. This is a point of discussion. This was something, I don't know, Alasdair, if you agree that a mistake Pioli was doing often, even if the match was still not decided. He was making too many risky changes, and that was often penalizing Lazio. I don't know. What's your thought? I thought putting in Felipe Anderson wasn't the right move. Maybe it was better to put in Caicedo to replace Immobile and have a central striker there, and instead of Felipe Anderson. No.
Yeah, I think I I think he was right to change to back four. Just because I think with 10 men having a kind of 4-3-2 system, which has a bit more structure to it than keeping a back three. I think if you got a back four with 10 men, you've got something to kind of fall back on as a defensive structure, whereas with a back three, it becomes a bit trickier. I think Lucas is the one from that point there that I might agree with. I think Lucas was actually doing pretty well after he went down to 10 men. He got a bit more freedom to go forward. And I think when it got further into the match, he would be an obvious player to sacrifice to perhaps bring on a more creative player. But at that stage of the game, I thought it was still quite early on to be pulling him off, because at that point he pulled Alberto back into the midfield three, and you're left with Milinkovic, Savic, Parolo, and Alberto, and there's not an awful lot of cover there.
And you know one thing, we spoke about it about Lulic. We need leadership. I think Leiva has ton of leadership, and he showed it. You know, he was the leader in that moment of the match when Lazio was down, 10 men down, 1-0 down. It's not a coincidence that biggest chances Lazio had was made by Leiva. That's the player Lazio needed. You know, his leadership is really important and stands out in this type of match. Remember Juventus Lazio. He was the leader. He made the difference. I thought in this occasion he could make it, especially if the rest of the team went nuts after the mistake of the referee, like Lulic. Then obviously you can understand. You know, you have to win. And so you take off a midfield defender, and you put a striker, etc. But Lucas Leiva has that leadership, can play a little bit further and maybe move like a trequartista, and he has that experience that Lazio needed in that match, in that moment of the match, I think. So we said that Inzaghi is human. He's been very, very good, but as all the rest of the humans can make mistakes, and maybe bringing in Felipe Anderson too early, taking off Lucas Leiva, maybe that would have changed something. We'll never know, to be honest, but that's my fault.
Yeah, and you know, it's I wouldn't go as far as to say unprecedented circumstances, but it's unusual circumstances that he found himself in. When you have to try and keep a balance to the team in you know a system they're not used to, and also try and get back into the game and score goals. It's just not a position we want to find ourselves in too often. But like the Napoli game all over again, really just finding ourselves basically, and the players trying to work out what they're trying to do.
And it was funny because we were just saying, you know, Felipe Anderson is back, Wallace is back. Finally, we have all the players available except Nani, and now we're going to lose Immobile for 2 matches probably. We hope we don't lose Luis Alberto, but we don't know how much injured he is. Rado didn't feel in great shape at the end of the match, so it looks really like against Napoli again. You know, who knows when they're going to come back. So
yeah. And, you know, it's a crucial run again. I said this during the international break on our show, was that this run of games up between the international break and New Year is absolutely crucial in terms of what Lazio's ambitions for the season are going to be. And at the moment, we're still in it. You know, that's, despite everything, despite all these results going against us, we're still in a good position in the league. But this needs to get turned around now. You know, this is the time for us to get back to winning ways. And you know what, beating Atalanta and Inter, and we're still in a really good position, particularly that Inter game, obviously, because that would help but narrow the gap. But we're still right in it. Still got a game in hand as well against the top three. Worth bearing that in mind as well. So I think as long as we can, keep uh, keep reintegrating these guys back into the team to freshen it up, that's going to be quite important. Get Felipe Anderson in from the start as soon as possible. Give Lukaku a go. Caicedo's going to have to be given a go, and then see where it goes from there. I think we can still be optimistic that we're going to finish the year strongly, despite clearly the refereeing decisions not going our way.
Yeah, you said about Inter. Can I be honest and think it's going to happen again?
Well,
I'm convinced that the referee is going to make a mistake against us, against Inter, in the match against Inter. It happened so often in the key match. This month was crucial for Lazio because Lazio was nearly there, second position if they played against Udinese, and the match was postponed and the sun was coming out. And then there was the terrible mistake in the derby, and then the terrible mistake against Fiorentina, and then the terrible mistake today. Sorry, I believe it's going to happen again.
Well, like I said, I don't want to engage in conspiracy theories.
No. I don't
yeah,
think it's...
I can see. Look, I can see your reasoning because it's been in crucial games that these things have been happening. But I still think Lazio, the team's going out there to do a job. And look, if we can get into a position where we're dominating these games and refereeing decisions one way or another aren't going to affect the entire manner of the match, in the same way we did at the start of the season, if you're winning games by 2 or 3 goals, then this isn't going to be an issue. Referees couldn't affect the way that we played against Milan. We absolutely hammered them. There's nothing that was going to stop that happening. So if we can go back to being that Lazio team, then at the same time, the refereeing issues hopefully should become less of a problem.
Addi is asking, can Marusic play on the left? Yes, he can play on the left. So yeah. He moved Basta on the right and Lulic doesn't play. Basically, that his point of view, I believe, just to take out...
every week, our followers seem to be getting more creative in the ways we can get rid of Lulic from this team.
Yeah. I don't want to criticize him too much, but today he didn't only perform bad as a player, but also as a leader, who should have been his main job, in this team. He's the player, he's the oldest player, the player who played more matches for Lazio, and in the second half, he was like a fan, completely angry against the referee, but if you play, you have to forget everything. And
he is like a fan. And
yeah.
I think that's what endears him to the Lazio support. Obviously, that and the Coppa Italia final goal, and that's why he's become a bit of a club legend and part of the reason he's got the captaincy in the first place. But there's a time for that, and there's a time to take your position of responsibility seriously. And I think tonight he got that wrong.
Yeah,
got it the wrong way.
Addi wants to specify. Addi wants to specify that Lulic can rotate with Parolo. I see him as a box-to-box midfielder. It can be an option. He played in that position already. I don't know. Parolo didn't shine today, but I didn't think it was his fault today.
No, I agree with that. I've said that before on here. I think Lulic is better suited to being part, a Mezzala, being on either one of the sides of Lucas. I don't think he'd be starting in one of those positions, obviously, but I think, I think his kind of sloppiness on the ball could be hidden a bit easier. Honestly, I'd love if Federico was here tonight and he could tell us his pass completion percentages. It was
-1. Adi said, sometimes you want to see a passionate leader, though. Yes, but there's still, that line you don't have to cross. Leiva is the example. he was passionate, and when he had the chances, then he turned on to the Curva Nord and said, "Come on, guys, come on." But he didn't make stupid mistakes or, you know, complain against the referee, etc. He's continue playing, give 100% as usual, and he was the leader in that situation. While Lulic, I believe, instead of sending the right message to the team, he was pretty much saying, we lost it already, the referee made a mistake, it's useless to continue," which is wrong. Not saying that it wasn't the referee mistake, but you still have time to recover. So I think there's a difference there. And again, I don't want to complain about Lulic and say he's terrible, etc. He's going to be always remembered for that goal and for his passion for Lazio, etc. But we are here to judge, and I believe Lukaku could have made a difference instead of Lulic, probably.
Yeah. Should we? Do you fancy going on to the Europa League?
Yeah. Otherwise, we'll never talk about that. So
okay,
I'm really sorry because you were really pushing hard for Celtic, Lazio, but it didn't happen.
I was hoping if I said it enough, it would mean it would happen, but apparently it doesn't work that way.
No.
So Steaua Bucharest came out of the hat. The first leg will be in Romania, second leg in Rome. What are your thoughts? I mean, there are obviously some more kind of glamorous teams in the draw we could have got, but this is probably one of the more winnable ones. And at the same time, though, it is still a historic team that's won European trophies. It's not like we're playing a tiny insignificant side here, but I heard earlier that they've never beaten an Italian team in their history. So it's probably still one we can feel fairly confident about.
Yes, and I think it's really important the fact that Lazio will play the second match at home. That could make a big difference. But let's be honest, Lazio have to win this match. It's not easy because they passed the group phase and they're a decent team. But Lazio, if they play at the top, they can win it. And it sounds obvious, but for example, I don't think that Sarri will play his starters in Europa League, for example. So that's why I don't believe Napoli will go very deep in the Europa League, while I believe Inzaghi will try to win it and go as further as they could do, especially seeing what happens with Serie A and the fact that now the Champions League is the fourth position in Serie A. It's not very near anymore. So Europa League at this moment becomes the easy way to get to the Champions League. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but probably at this moment it could be the easiest way to reach the Champions League qualification.
I don't know. I almost kind of wonder if Italian teams are going to go back to the old ways of not really paying much attention to the Europa League or not taking it very seriously, because at the time when the top two in Serie A went to the group stage of the Champions League and third place gets a playoff, which is what it's been up until now, all the top teams are wanting to avoid the playoff because Italian teams have such a bad record in the playoffs for the Champions League. Whereas now you've got 4 automatic group stage spots. So I think some of those top teams will probably feel a lot more kind of comfortable and confident domestically that they're going to get there, so they don't need to expend their energy in the Europa League. So I kind of wonder if it's going to go back to the old ways a bit, despite the Europa League having this Champions League spot for the winner. I think for Lazio, it's still definitely a competition worth focusing on, though. And as long as we can hopefully, bring in some reinforcements in January to help with that, that's the crucial thing, because it's not something you want to find getting in your way of a good Serie A season, which it has done before. But we've done the hard part. The group stage is the hardest part in terms of the expense of energy, because you're playing 6 games in the space of 3 months, and you're traveling all around. Whereas now it's just 2-legged ties. So Romania, Bucharest to Rome, it's not too far. Relatively speaking, the draw could have been a lot worse. And
absolutely.
Yeah, looking at Szczec's record as well, they started really well, won their first 3 games. They were in a group with Victoria Pilsen, Lugano, and Hapoel Beersheva, but then they didn't get a single win in their last 3, 2 defeats and a draw. So, if they're not managing to beat Lugano at home, which was their final group stage game, then I think we can probably feel fairly comfortable.
We're going to see. It depends even if they're going to play the starters or they're going to focus on the league. Christopher Thomas is asking, is there any way Immobile's red card can be appealed? Lazio can, especially if he gets more than 2 days of suspension. Someone is saying that he could get 3 match of ban. But I think one, as he gets the direct red card, I think one is for sure. He's getting at least, he's missing Atalanta for sure. Then we have to see what else happened. Walim Mohammed is asking, is it too early to just focus on Europa League? Yes, but seeing how Lazio is performing in the last month and how the other teams are going, then maybe it's easier to reach the Champions League through the Europa League. Ramiel Gendi is saying, well, Caceres is coming, so no fear. Caceres scored on Sunday.
He's the new Caicedo, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Caceres, that's going to be a useful addition. I think it's good to see him, getting a goal and being back in the Verona team for a start. Obviously, you're not exactly signing a guy high on confidence, or you wouldn't have thought so because of the season Verona are having. But yeah, we've said this before, but very versatile player. Kind of like another Patrick, essentially. A guy who can basically play anywhere in the kind of back 5. So he will be a very useful player and help fill an extra space in the defence. So that is, it's good, and it's kind of uncharacteristically good to know you've got an experienced international defender who's definitely actually arriving in January transfer window before we're even there. So I think we shouldn't underestimate how astute a move that could be. But at the same time, there are other areas of the team to strengthen too, in midfield and up front, and at wing back as well, possibly.
Yes, see Qatari, I hope I said it right, before the podcast asked, please mention that Lazio need to bring more effective player in the winter mercato. Needs more defender, CDM, CM and wing backs. Well, defender, Caceres is coming. I think it's enough. Do you think we need someone in midfield, as Saeed is mentioning?
I think it would do no harm. The thing is that we've talked about before how hard Murja's finding it to get game time, and I'm not too sure. When you talk about a guy who's been consistently linked with Lazio as Milan Badel at Fiorentina, who is in a Stefan de Vrij style situation of having a contract expiring next summer, which means that Lazio, if they wanted to get him, would hopefully be able to on a cut price deal. I find that slightly unlikely still, imagining Tare signing an established Serie A midfielder in the January transfer market, but he's a good player. But again, he's also a player who'd be kind of demanding a first team spot, and we want to be able to rotate that midfield, but it's also getting the right balance of being able to keep everyone happy as well. And we do have the likes of Murja waiting for his chance. We've got Micheli, who we've seen the first of last week, We've got Lulic who can also go into that position as well. So I think it would be nice to have another midfielder, in my opinion, but I don't think it's an essential one.
Yeah, especially because if Di Gennaro come back, then we have a
Yeah,
body there. Now we can talk about his performance so far, but thinking that there's not the group phase anymore of Europe League, I don't think he's gonna play that much. So you have Murcia coming in, and probably we have enough body
and
there
even Bruno Jordao, the Portuguese guy, we've not seen
eventually.
it,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
he's another option potentially.
The question is, do we need someone in front? A real Vice Immobile, or do we believe that Casado is enough?
No, I think for me that's the number one priority above everything else. Is having another striker. Uh, Not only to actually put some pressure on Immobile, but to be able to give him some rest. We were saying at the start of the season when he was on fire, how worrying it is the thought of him losing form or getting injured. Well, he has lost form now, and so's Lazio. That's not a coincidence, we do need to be able to bring in something else at that stage. I don't think Immobile is necessarily playing poorly enough at the moment that I would say definitely needs to be dropped or anything that extreme, but it's definitely useful to have another option
Yeah, of course.
with more quality than Caicedo. I mean, Caicedo's a fine squad player, but look, he's not someone who Immobile is going to be losing sleep over. So I really would like that position to be filled, but in the January market, it's a tough one. Strikers are always the ones who cost the most money in the market. Generally, January is the time of year when clubs ask for the most money for their players. So it's not going to be easy, and it's hard to imagine, Tari and Lotito kind of making a big effort to get an established player in.
Yes, especially after what's happening today, they can say, yeah, well, they don't want us to arrive fourth, so why invest money this season? Let's wait, next year or concentrating on what happens with Europe League, which, is not the right decision to make, because I really feel that this team needs probably a striker if Casar is coming this winter, and it could compete with the best teams. Don't know if you agree.
Yeah, no, I do. I mean, I think you just do need a bit more depth to keep it going throughout the season. And one of the things we've kind of talked about over the last few weeks is what Inzaghi could be doing right now to try and freshen things up. And I think one of the main reasons he's not able to freshen things up too much is because he doesn't have the staff to do it. He doesn't have the personnel available. So if he had he's got decent enough depth in his squad, but he doesn't really have too much depth in quality. Or at least he's got potential on the bench, but he doesn't have people he can necessarily turn to and know exactly the job they're going to do for him.
I would love to see a little bit of change. We said it already, but if next Sunday without Immobile, Lazio could play with a 3-4-1-2 with Luis Alberto behind Felipe Anderson and Casado, as we don't have any other option there. That could be interesting to see, and see if Lazio get more dangerous in the box. Obviously, if I had Immobile, I would love to see Immobile near Felipe Anderson with Luis Alberto behind. Palombi could be an option there, but I would see if Casado and Felipe Anderson play well together, especially because Felipe Anderson can create space for Casado and put him in front of the keeper. So I believe Lazio need to have more players in the box. Immobile is not scoring, but it's even true that Immobile is often outside the penalty box, and so it's difficult to give him the ball in front of the keeper. So maybe with two players in front and Luis Alberto behind, who is terrific, Lazio can be different, can be more dangerous. Now, obviously, I was forgetting that Luis Alberto came out limping, so we don't know if he's going to be able to play next Sunday. But I believe that could be an option.
Yeah. I just saw a comment coming on Twitter from Gianni saying this is why Lazio should have bought Giovanni Simeone. I think he's absolutely right. That was a player we were linked with in the summer, and it seemed like a sensible move at the time. And actually, that's the kind of profile of player I would quite like to see come in January. He's not not necessarily a Serie A superstar yet, but he's proved his worth in the league and that he can do the job there, and he's got potential to get better. So obviously now it's too late as a Fiorentina, but that profile of player is the kind of guy I'd like to see Lazio go for.
Yeah, and his profile was perfect. He's a youngster. He's someone who showed that he's passionate. He has a link with Lazio, so it would have made a ton of sense. Probably Fiorentina already had a deal with him, and that's why he ended up there. But I think a lot of Lazio fans wanted to see Simeone with the Lazio shirt. It would have made a lot of people happy, and I think he was the right player. Even to play with Immobile, I believe it could have been the right option.
Yeah. Hindsight is a wonderful thing, but it did make sense at the time. So it's a shame. Yeah, I mean, you've got to make use of these historic links. If there's a if there's a young player whose father has had a link to the club,
and what then a link.
he knows he's going to have a good reception. So.
Yeah.
That's might not be much, but it is an extra little incentive you can offer a player is knowing that they're going to be received very well by the sport. So, just waiting for Alessandro Nesta's children to appear on the radar, and then and Veron, and just get the old team back together. We talked about Federico Chiesa before. As another one.
He's so good. He's so good.
That would be nice, but I think perhaps he's a bit too good now, annoyingly. We'll see. It'd be nice to see him in a Lazio shirt at some point.
Okay, there are the quotes of Simone Inzaghi. I don't read it because you said we don't have to talk anymore about the referee.
Okay.
Well, the title says that he said he understood in the locker room that we would have lost this match. So that's not a very good sign. But he doesn't say nothing about Luis Alberto. So I don't know how bad is the situation. So crossing finger.
You never know. It could just be something as simple as cramp, or something minor. So fingers crossed.
I mean, it cannot rain every time, always, like in Scotland.
Trust me, it can.
I know. I was in Leeds. I remember.
Oh well, come on! I mean, the sun was shining in October. We were winning all the time, so it will return. Every season has its peaks and its troughs, and at the moment we're going through a tough ride. But I'm sure there's still reasons to be hopeful.
I don't know. I think we lost our chance for competing for the Champions League. Now we can fight for the 5th place. Before ending, Adi's asking, Okaka could be available, and Fiorentina acquired 2 signings I really wanted to see at Lazio, Simeone and Benassi.
Yeah, Benassi is another one. And Baselli, who we saw today as well, who's someone we talked about in the summer as well. Okaka, that's an interesting shout. I think if you got Caicedo, you don't necessarily need Okaka, do you? I mean, they're very similar players.
And Okaka comes from Roma. I would never get a Roma player.
Oh, does he? I hadn't realised that.
Yeah, yeah.
You've got a chart up on your wall. Oh, every player.
And Benassi, yes, he would have been an interesting player, but if I had to choose, I prefer Leiva, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Again, different players.
Yeah, but the experience is probably something we needed, and
yeah.
And Adi said, I saw Alberto laughing in the bench, so hopefully that indicates nothing serious. Let's hope it's right. Let's hope it's nothing serious.
I'm glad somebody was laughing.
Yeah. Before we end, Alasdair didn't like the jingle, the introduction jingle, so I took it off. So guys, write on Twitter, on our Facebook page, or on Spreaker, what do you want? Do you want again the Ciro Immobile goal? Do you want the in English, the 2 ore in English, or something else? Please write me. I'll try the best.
Or we can record Vittorio singing Soja 2 ore.
I sing very well, so it could be an option. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. We already passed 200 followers, 200 subscribers, so that's amazing. Thank you very much. And
absolutely.
Say again?
Absolutely. Just agreeing with you.
Yeah. Thank you, Alasdair. Thanks everybody for listening to this podcast. I feel better now, after talking about what happened.
Yeah, it is a bit like therapy, this podcast, more than anything. But it's good to talk through your problems. So we'll be back again soon enough to do it all over again.
Yep. After Lazio Cittadella?
Yeah, Coppa Italia night.
Okay, bye everybody. Thanks for listening, and Alasdair, have a good night.
Cheers, you too.
Bye.